Hi, and welcome back to the Influence Gap for episode three. Today's episode is on racial representations in the media and how they also translate into social media as well, I guess. I'm really happy today to be joined by Wadzi Zoe. Would you please like to introduce yourself and what you kind of do?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a fashion content creator originally started on TikTok and grew a following of like over 130K followers from there, just from posting tips, advice. Like one of my most popular series is how to dress if you have an hourglass body shape and talking about how to dress depending on your body shape. Um, I've then now begun to implement like an Instagram strategy. So I've now managed to grow over 12K on Instagram, and I'd say I'd been doing TikTok for about 3 years. And with my Instagram, I'm mainly taking it seriously within the last year. Also, outside of doing that, I've managed to work with different types of fashion brands, doing gifted collabs, paid collaborations. I also have had experience working with an agent. So that meant that helped me attend fashion shows or fashion and PR events, as well as things like gifting.
Thank you. So let's just get straight into it. I think it's important to start by firstly defining racial representation. So, for me, with the research I've done, I guess that would be how people of different racial backgrounds are portrayed in the media, and then how that will influence people's opinions and attitudes towards those people in like real life because of what they've seen in media and things like that. Um, so yeah, in today's media landscape, diversity in casts and TV presenters, for example, I don't think is always enough because it's so much more than that. It's also about behind the scenes. So like there's no point in necessarily having maybe a black presenter in the front, but then the whole production team at the back is all middle-aged white men. So then the way that black person in front of the camera is shown may not actually be the best representation that could be there for that person.
Yeah, that's literally what I wrote down. Like, it's not just about who's in front of the camera, it's about who's in the boardrooms, who's in the writers' rooms, who's in the creative directors' meetings, deciding on what's going to be what, who's going to wear what. Because the people in front of the camera, they have, they're not the ones that are like coming up with the options of how things are going to be edited or how they're going to be perceived. They're the ones just being told, can you do X, Y, and Z? How do you feel about doing X, Y, and Z? And sometimes without knowing the full context. And it's the people behind the scenes that obviously really shape and frame the stories. And I also feel like, if Black women or other people of color aren't in the positions of influence behind the scenes, then the representation often sometimes feels like performative, because people behind the scenes might not know exactly what's the most like authentic way to represent someone of color. So it sometimes will come across as disingenuous. And I think you notice this because normally you can tell like not a lot of airtime or a lot of time has been spent with the person of color. Maybe they've been hired, maybe they've been casted, but there hasn't been adequate hair or makeup model. So that's when it starts to feel performative, because it's like, well, what's the point in bringing this person on if they're not fully receiving the same sort of treatment and understanding like the other cast.
So, would you say you've noticed anything that has changed in the way that Black people or people of color are represented in the media? And if you haven't, what is that?
So I'd say there's definitely been more room for ownership and control, which is one of the main things that Black people should be having. So they own their craft, they can have control of their craft, because that's where you can have the most leverage. And I think with social media and platforms like, especially like TikTok and YouTube, it's really, really great and it's really, really powerful, because it means that Black creators don't have to wait for mainstream media to give them a seat at the table. They can build their own communities and platforms and brands. And actually, I feel like doing all that helps like third party people see like, oh my gosh, why are we not including these creators, rather than us having to beg and plead and, try and like work with these brands or work with these companies. What I've seen a lot is a lot of people of color deciding they're just going to start their own thing and they have full ownership and creative control of it, which is really good. So another thing I guess is we've moved beyond the the one-dimensional struggle narratives, like online, but there's obviously still an issue with depth. So Black women in particular are often expected to obviously still fit a certain archetype. It's still quite rigid in the views that they can fit into on social media, and that's something I've noticed also as a creator. I don't think the expectation necessarily. I mean, yeah, there are expectations from that come from non Black or non POC creators, and that's more probably to do with attitudes or you know personality. But in this specific example, I'm talking more about uh, the, I'm talking more about they're expected to fit a certain physical persona still. Like I still feel like that is quite rigid in the options that yeah, Black women can decide to represent themselves or show up as, if that makes sense. Like it's I don't think it's open how you should show up. I still feel like it's quite rigid.
Like, I can think of a very specific example. Politics, but I think still relevant because
Yeah.
when Michelle Obama was obviously in the White House with her husband, Barack, she always used to have the silk press, like it was always her natural hair. And then now that she's gone back to not being the first lady anymore, just like normal life, quote unquote, she tends to wear braids more. And she's specifically said that she's always been a fan of braids and she's always liked wearing braids, but when she was in the White House, no one would have been ready for that. Like it was never a space where she would have been allowed to do that. So she just completely avoided it.
I remember reading that as well, watching that as well in an interview that she did. They were like, "Why are we wearing braids in the White House?" And she was just like, they were not ready for that. But yeah, that's a great example of what I'm trying to say. Like, there are those spaces and there are those opportunities for Black people can take creative control and ownership. However, there's still, unfortunately, like a rigid way of how they expect you to appear or show up. And of course, there are there are a lot of Black creators that don't follow that mold. But unfortunately, I feel like they end up kind of getting put into a box of what they want and what they don't want. Do you know what I mean? Just based on how they decide to present themselves. And that might not necessarily be true. They might think, oh, she's probably not into X, Y, and Z because she has braids. Like they still sound kind of like you still kind of get put in a box. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. But one creator that I've seen that has managed to break that is India Palak from Love Island. Um, she doesn't follow a set structure or a set image of what she needs to look like. She has the braids, crazy colors, her style is like very, very wacky and stuff. And yet she came from Love Island and that has a very different persona and look to what she kind of represents. But yet she's still successfully managed to become a presenter and like be in that light without having to kind of like mold herself or fit this one image. So we have her, and that's the one person that stands out to me in the UK. And she has spoken out about it because I think a while ago she had this outfit that she posted on TikTok, and people were like, I don't understand her style. I don't like her style. And it was Black people. It wasn't even necessarily Black creators. And this is what I mean when I say there's so much rigidness um, because she's in a specific sphere, like the Love Island reality TV, whatever, people expect her to kind of dress and be within a certain way. Um, like as a Black woman, from like all if you have a look at all of the Black women that have like gone on that show and stuff, they are kind of all expected to have it. They all kind of have the same sort of vibe, and that is like influence. I'm not saying that white women don't, but I'm saying that I feel like it's a lot stricter with the Black women. So I think India has done a really great job at doing that. And I love how is it ITV that the violence is on? I love that they still have her on interviewing and she's still like rocking whatever she wants to rock. Um yeah. So she's a really great example, but it's really, really hard to see those type of examples.
Yes. But now that you've mentioned India, it's actually something that I wanted to talk about, but in a different angle, because to me, I see India as the most successful Black contestant from Love Island. And then I think the most successful white contestant would have been Molly May. So obviously, Molly May, she quite quickly became an ambassador with PLT, and then she even became their creative director. And then she didn't lose the job; she just decided to step down herself because of motherhood. But then when India came out of Love Island, I think they gave her I think it was the PLT marketplace she was an ambassador of. And I found that very interesting because PLT is not really a brand you would think of if you're thinking about sustainable clothing. Like, it's known for fast fashion. So it definitely felt a bit like a cop out that you got this, the self-proclaimed it girl off of Love Island, and then you're giving her something that right now, when I've tried to look, I don't think it's still live.
No,
So
I don't think it is.
yeah, so why would they give her something that's not got the longevity as just the normal PLT brand?
I think at the time, because the two of them, I think when Molly got her like ambassador thing, and then India got offered something from PLT. I think at the time they were thinking of either having Gemma Owens or India, and people voted India. And I think because India's style is quite alternative, I don't think she fit like the way she dressed. I don't think she fits like the basic PLT model. Honestly speak, I really don't think she does. Molly, from watching like her old vlogs or old videos or whatever, like that is kind of like what she's been doing, what her audience are obsessed with. So I at the time, obviously the marketplace was still new, so I didn't want to like go in with any judgment. But I did feel like secondhand fashion, something more quirky, something less mainstream, really does suit India. But obviously I'm not there behind the scenes and I don't really know like the exact motive of why they picked her to do that. It might have not been for the reason of, oh, like Molly's fans and stuff like that, they're very much mainstream and you know what I mean? And she was doing PLT holes way before that. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't really know as well currently what India's status is like with Pretty Little Thing. But I do remember Pretty Little Thing did do a lot of polls, and before they were like, "Do we pick India? Do we pick Gemma?"
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, okay, seriously, like Gemma didn't bring anything to the table to be an ambassador. That's why I'm more like her kind of.
Involved for Molly May. The poll involved for Molly May. So why is there a
Yeah,
poll?
that's true. That is true. Yeah. There was no poll involved for her at all. It was kind of like granted to her, granted to her. Yeah. I don't know whether that's because Molly did work as an influencer before for PLT because she was the first influencer to go on Love Island.
Yes.
And like I think her success is a mixture of things because let's be real, there's been so many blondes and people that look like her that have been on the show, but they're not as successful. And I think for her, what Love Island is, a lot of the time, people that go on there, they're not really that real or that like, um, when I say real, it's like if you watch their videos or if you see their content on socials or stories, like they're never really that real and honest. Like whenever I've seen any of Molly Mae's videos, she kind of feels more like relatable. She's not afraid to speak about issues in her relationship, her child, sorry, relationships, her struggles with her child and stuff like that. And I've never seen any other Islander do that. They like to keep up this like persona and stuff like that. So I feel like with her and obviously the typical Love Island watcher, because she's got those two things right, she's automatically just going to skyrocket because the average viewer wants to look like a Molly May, but the fact that she consistently keeps relatable, I feel like that's what kind of helps her growth. And it is quite shocking because I actually realized that a lot of other islanders that do try and do stuff outside after post Love Island, it's not authentic. You don't feel like you relate to them. Then they're not trying to be like you. They're trying to want you to be like them. So yeah, with the Molly thing, I'm like, no other creator that looks like her. There's been so many other people, contestants from Love Island that look like her. No one has got an opportunity as big as her. Um, and I do think it's because she was probably like an influencer before. But yeah, with the India thing, I don't think that should have even been a discussion whether it should have been Gemma or India because Gemma was bringing really nothing in terms of that. Like jewelry, she had the thing with the jewelry collab, which made sense for her because she always wore like designer jewelry. But for Pretty Little Thing, I don't think her heart would have been into it and her creativity wasn't there. Like if Pretty Little Thing just checked her, sorry, I'm rambling, but if PLT just checked her bikini, because she had a bikini brand, it was literally just a knockoff or ripoff of any mainstream bikini line. There was no originality on their branding. And for that reason, if you're deciding who should we have as an invite, there was no poll involved for her at all. It was kind of like granted to her. Yeah. I don't know whether that's because Molly did work as an influencer before PLT because she was the first influencer to go on Love Island.
Yes.
And like,
what do you think of the rise in DEI, meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Are they meaningful or performative?
Well, first of all, I heard the other day that America's like gotten rid of that,
Which is crazy to me.
which is really, really, really crazy. So I feel like we're going to talk about the States because America have gotten rid of it now. We're going to see less brands performing because they don't need to have it. They don't need to do it. Do you know what I mean? We're going to see less, like, so if a brand does hire a Black person, whatever, in the States, you kind of are not going to have that question, or people shouldn't have that question. It's bad that they even do have that question, but they shouldn't now of did they just hire them to take the diversity quota? Because it's like not even now needed as a minimum, which is insane. But I feel like the brands that truly care about diversity don't just showcase it in their campaigns. Like we mentioned, like they hire diverse talent at every level, from leadership to marketing teams to decision makers. I've worked at so many companies and they do have diversity in them, but it's never in managerial big decision making roles. It's either in like the shop floor or like an assistant or a marketing exec, but it's never like a head of. I feel like it still kind of looks the same. And you know, the diversity inclusion, I can really tell your company does have a diversity inclusion if you hire a Black person to make the big decisions, because that's what really shapes your company. And I honestly, I rarely ever see that like someone as a head. I've seen them as a manager, where someone else is still managing them. I've seen them as an assistant. I've seen them as an intern, but I rarely see them as like you're calling the shots onto how the company is shaped and looked. Rarely see it.
It's like there's a barrier on how far up the hierarchy they can actually go.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain point, for you to go above that, it's like, no, 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 that's too much, that's too much. You can't go there now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which is it's really bad. It's very rigid and it's not like a open way of thinking. But again, I feel like with Black people, they keep creating their own stuff, using their own on, you know, platforms that are free to use, then there's corporations are not going to have a choice but to hire Black people to make the big decisions because they're going to see the numbers and they're going to see like, you know, there's a market there and stuff. And they do see that, but unfortunately, sometimes they see that and then they go and make a Black business, like Black hair product, and there isn't a single person making the decision making. But sort of there isn't a single Black person making the decision making, but they're just selling to Black people.
I think with Fenty Beauty's launch in 2017, that definitely set a precedence, changed the trajectory of inclusivity in the beauty industry. Yeah, because before, a Black girl going into a drugstore or a makeup shop and looking for your shade on the shelf, and when you ask, oh, maybe it's in the back or something, they're like, no, we don't ever stock that. Like, how dare you think your shade is ever going to be available? So then for a brand to come with 50, no, 40, then
40.
expanded to 50, 40, then expanded to 50 shades from the jump, and all the marketing and adverts, everything had such a diverse range of models. It was crazy. It was like unheard of. And everybody started to follow suit because of that.
Yeah, it just shows that people genuinely didn't think that they needed to. They didn't think, oh, there's an audience for that. You know, people that will make, and that's why I'm saying, like, if there was someone else also in those higher decision making positions, say for example, Kylie Cosmetics, I think it was before Fenty Beauty, Kylie Cosmetics, there was no diversity there, whatever, people would complain. But if there was someone in a position as high as her in her company, that would have been something that would have been pointed out and highlighted. But the people that are, you know, people of color, like her best friend at the time who was doing the swatches, she doesn't have any stake, equity, anything in the company. So it's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're showing it on a brown person, but that brown person doesn't make any decisions in your company. You're just like, hey, can you please model my lipstick? Can I swatch it on your hand? Show it's inclusive. It's like, why don't you actually just have her in your hiring process? Someone like her.
Because after she's done the swatches, that's it. It's gone straight back to all the management team that are making the decisions just being white. So what does her swatches do?
Yeah, the swatches are after everything's been decided. It was just to launch. These are the colors. I used to remember she used to do swatches on her friend's hands, the Jordan Woods, and she'd get Jordan to film it and everything like that. And it's like, and she'll even get her to model the lipsticks after. And it's just like, well, what does that do? She needs to be in your testing process to see, is it, you know. does it work for her?
But even outside of like beauty and stuff, I definitely do see brands that do it right. Like I think Gymshark is a brand that has diverse marketing, and they also in their product ranges, I believe they have a headband that's for wig wearers, which I think is really
Oh,
good.
wow.
Yeah. So not only are they marketing with people of color, they're also making products that can actually work for them as well. So I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing they have got some kind of influence in their management team that obviously contributes to the idea.
And Nike have the hijabi for running.
So I was looking at a report and it's called Diverse Influences in 2024. But I think it was in retrospect. So I think the statistics are from 2023. And I think it's US based as well. But it was I found this really interesting. It said that 58% of the most viral ads of the year were posted by influencers of color. But then only 22% of influencers who posted the most ads in 2023 were actually black and of minority ethnic backgrounds. Like, even though it's a small percentage of people posting the ads, whatever they're posting, they're the most successful ones. So I find it hard to understand why brands tend to shy away from using creators of color when clearly they can bring the results. They can bring the results.
I would say a lot of the times the way brands pick creators is obviously they hire an agency to look for creators, or they hire, yeah, or they ask for it within their marketing team, and that's when just biases come in. Like, I'm not gonna lie, as someone like obviously I went to UCA and I had some people that graduated who did the PR. I did the PR pathway, and they work for PR agencies. They're all white, and a huge part of working in a PR agency is obviously working with brands and doing gifting. And a lot of the times, the people that I went to uni with, I literally was not like friends with a lot of them. They just knew me. They would put me on the gifting list or the PR list or the sponsorship list. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of the times people pick who they know or who they like, and it's literally biases. Like, it's not really fair in the way this is one aspect of it. I'm sure there's many other aspects, but it's not really fair the way that they create. Oh, who should we put on Maybelline's PR list? Do you know what I mean? They'll be like, oh, I know a girl that went to uni and she did influencing or whatever. Oh, I really like this influencer. This is my fave. I might add her. And obviously, if it's like mainly just white girls that are in the PR agency, a lot of their influences and people they look up to and whatever they want to be friends with also happen to be white. It's never like a fair process. And I can say that as someone obviously that's been like gotten PR from people that I knew from uni. And they decided to put me on that list. But it did make me think like, is this also the reason why like, so many black creators are being overlooked because people are just picking creators that they like, really.
Yeah. And
Or that their algorithm is showing, which is just another issue,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I notice a lot of the times it's like creators that their algorithm is showing. So for example, on my company, when I'm looking for influencers, I'm looking for influencers through our brand account, just because I'm looking for home influencers, and our brand account is home. So there's tons of them. But a lot of the time I'm having to dig and search for black POC creators. If I ever had any, it's because they're ones that I follow on my personal account or know of.
yeah,
I feel like the algorithms really need to do a better job at like churning them out and putting them first.
yeah.
Because I do think a lot of the times doing that research, it does get left behind.
But that's just that algorithmic bias, I guess.
It is, yeah, yeah. A lot of the times it's biased why someone's not picked up for a certain campaign. Like there's no reason that, oh, this is for white people, unless it's like, oh, we need someone for straight hair. But even then, like black dog, you have wigs or whatever. A lot of the time, it's literally just like biases, which it's like unfair biases.
Would you say you have personally experienced moments where you felt like being a Black woman affected how you were being perceived?
I'd say just again, as within social media algorithms, because not just with me, but you can see a white creator, whatever, doing the same sort of content to the same sort of scale as a black creator. Or the black creator is putting even more effort, and it's just so unfavorable where their content gets pushed more, and they will just have a ridiculous amount of followers. And I just think it's literally just because the algorithm is pushing their content out more and like stuff like that. And I do notice it, and it's kind of like hard to explain, but there's specific things where it's just like I do think their content gets favored more. Um, I don't know if it's because there's more of them. I don't know if it's because I have no idea, but definitely I do think black creators' content, also I guess you could say mine, doesn't get pushed out in the same way. And I can definitely tell the difference within growth. Like a white creator, they don't really have to do as much to receive, the level of growth that maybe a black creator has to do. Same with creating ads and stuff when they're doing like brand collabs and stuff like that. In terms of money, I don't really know because I'm not like at that level where like I've been in the same room with other white creators that have been on the same campaign with me and they're telling me their numbers and digits. So I couldn't tell you that now for me, but I've definitely obviously seen online before where I think there was an Instagram page called the Influencer Pay Gap.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
where black creators were saying, but I did also read an article saying black creators get paid 35% less than white creators.
Which is
And yeah, I know. And as someone that does like reach out to work with creators and stuff like that for work, one thing I will need to say is black creators need to start asking for the money they deserve because these white creators are like, they're not afraid to tell me, the company, their rates, sorry. But I don't know, maybe it could have been the black content creators I'm in touch with, but I can't turn around to them and be like, can you ask for more? Because we also have a budget as a brand, do you know what I mean? But like, they do need to step up and ask for their rate and stop saying they'll take things for free because then I'm also emailing other white creators and they're like, nope, I'm not taking that for free. I want 1.2 grand. And then obviously we bore them down. But like, yeah, I need us to start like not just accepting and saying yes and accepting any minimum because we're being paid. We need to start like asking for the amount that we feel like you deserve. That's what I think anyways. I know maybe some of the big black creators um are obviously asking for the amount they feel like they deserve because they, have agents and they have a lot more followers. But yeah, I think one thing we could definitely do to help, and I've noticed it as a pattern, is like we're just like saying yes to say yes to less.
Okay, so that's the end of today's episode. Looking at racial representation in media and marketing and how they intertwine and everything. Thank you, Wadzi, for joining me.
You're welcome.
Um, yeah, if you've liked this video, please, comment, subscribe, any comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you for the next one. Thank you.
Bye.